welcome once again to the Great Stories Podcast. I am Ryan Weber, your host for the show, and what you are listening to is a show where I sit across the table from another human being. Maybe it's someone I know, maybe someone I don't, maybe we're just meeting them for the first time, but either way, we hear people's stories. We hear the highs and lows of their life, some of the significant events, but most importantly, we dig down and we find out how they came to know Christ as their Lord and Savior and what it's meant for them to follow Him in the context of their real life. These interviews are unscripted, they're unedited, we don't script anything out or talk ahead of time. There's no agenda here except for you to really get inside the mind of another person and understand their walk following Christ from their perspective. I'm trying to just keep these interviews as just authentic and real as possible. I believe that people's own stories tell the gospel the best, and that's what we're trying to do. If you like something you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple ways you can do that. The first way you can do that is simply by sharing the episodes. If you listen to it on Apple Podcasts or on Stitcher, you can give it a thumbs up and a 5-star. That helps people find it sooner. Or you can jump online and you can actually share the links to the show either on your Facebook or you can text it to people. Either way, it's my prayer that people who need to hear the words that are coming out of my guests' mouths will get those words. And I'm praying that you listening right now have received it that way and would share it also. Not so that the Great Stories Podcast could be something amazing, but so that just the name of Christ can be known by people. And those who believe will be encouraged, and those who don't might actually come to. Very exciting. Another way you can support the show, it's shockingly cheap to put on a podcast. Really, this is not an expensive adventure, but I pay for it out of pocket, and any help anybody be willing to send down my way would be great. We got a Patreon account online at patreon.com. Just search for the Great Stories Podcast. So today I am welcoming the first official pastor onto the show. This is a guy who just had an amazing journey moving from Michigan to the Bay Area, California, to plant the second campus of Resonate Church in Hayward, California. An amazing guy, smart guy, really an inspiration to me in a lot of ways. I told him the first time I met him that I was glad he's here, and now 4+ years later, I'm beginning to understand why I should be glad that Will Medel is with us. He's 3 years into a church plant in Hayward, and he took the interview in directions that I didn't expect, which is a great pastor move to do, because really what he tells isn't so much the story of planting a church in Hayward. It's actually a reformation of his own heart through the process. Man, it's an honor to know this guy. It's an honor to call him a brother. And I'm honestly anticipating even greater things in the future for Pastor Will Medel. Hope you enjoy this interview as much as we enjoyed recording it. Here we go. Here we are.
It's about time, man. What took you so long?
Welcome aboard. I know. When did I text you about this? Like 6 months ago?
I can look it up.
Dang it. Well, it's not like you're not a busy fella.
Yeah, I think we're both occupied.
I keep a good calendar myself.
Yeah.
So
look at the Google Calendar with like 15 different colors for different events.
The color coded.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, man.
I just want it to be pretty. That's all. I make up events just to even out the color scheme.
I just want it to be blank.
Well, I wanted to start by giving you something. I was at the store today and I thought of you. I wanted to give you something that I knew would be a blessing.
Is it a bottle of ketchup?
It's your very own bottle of Heinz, established in 1869, real tomato ketchup. There's 57 varieties, but this is yours.
Dude, I'll take it. Thank you very much. We could always use this in the Medel household.
Yes, I know. I have been witness to the heckling you receive for your love of ketchup, even though it's untrue to your people.
You know, it would be better than Heinz ketchup if you gave me Hunt's ketchup.
Hunt. They didn't have Hunt's.
Because I live at the old Hunt's cannery in Hayward.
Oh, that's right.
That's where I live.
Well,
that'd be wild, huh?
I wanted to express my heartfelt support and your freedom to have poor taste in food just like anybody else does. So.
You know what's funny is I actually don't use as much ketchup as I used to when I first got here.
Oh.
Now it's the hot sauce.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Cholula or Tapatio?
I've got 2 bottles of Tapatio and they're both just about gone. One stays in my office, so if people come to the Resonate office and you ever need some hot sauce, just go next to my Lego collection and grab the hot sauce.
You're the hookup.
That's right.
I'm a Cholula guy myself. I just like the wooden ball.
Yeah.
For some reason, that makes me happy. I don't know.
That's probably a Newark thing. I think in Hayward we go with Tapatio.
You say it authentically too. Maybe that's my problem.
Yeah.
Well,
Tapatio is actually, excuse me. There's a national folkloric dance from the state of Jalisco called Jarabe Tapatio.
Ooh.
And so the jarabe is like really important to our culture. It's known affectionately in America as the Mexican hat dance, but the actual name is El Jarabe Tapatio.
I did that hat dance, like when I was in.
Well, let's see it, man.
In 3rd grade, I don't remember.
Let's see it right now.
I don't remember it.
We've got some square footage here, man.
I don't have the hat. Shoot, I got all the other hats.
Well, you got a lot of hats in here.
Yeah, I don't have them.
I'm sure we're boring the audience. Already.
No, they love this. It's my show. Do what
all
we
right,
want.
Man. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Well, so you're the first official pastor
is that right?
that I've had on. I've had 2 elders and a whole bunch of other fantastic folks, but and you're the second Haywardian.
Yeah. It's tough to follow DJ Stellar.
He was good.
Those are big shoes to fill, literally.
Yeah, and dangerous shoes.
Yeah, I can't.
Fill.
Yeah, I don't mess with him.
Yeah, he's talked to me before about if we were to fight, like he thinks I would win, and I said you're crazy.
I would pay money to see that fight.
I had him kick me once, just really like I told him like give me like 10%, and it hurt.
Yeah.
Like okay. Because I don't know what I'm doing. Whatever.
That's the difference. DJ has technique.
Technique.
Yeah. So if you might hit him and hurt him, but he might kill you.
I've got about 2 seconds where I could be dangerous. Beyond that, the technique takes over.
Yeah. I mean, that's a problem.
Thank you so much for coming. You are the campus pastor for the Hayward plant of Resonate Church, which is 3 years old.
Yeah, we turned 3 last week.
That's a big milestone, right? For like any church plant. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had a big celebration.
Yeah.
I think the first one is the one where you really go
a whole year, yeah.
Like, okay, we're going to survive by God's grace. But yeah, I mean, it's 3 years. It came by quickly. And then in 1 month, my family will have been here for 4 years.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Dude.
So the staff party coming up will be our 5th staff party.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Is it really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We got here December 1st, 2019.
Wow.
I mean, we started the transportation of hauling with the covered wagons over the Rockies in November, but
that's right. Yeah, because I remember the first Sunday you were there. You were wearing your big black trench coat.
Yeah, because you guys don't have heat at American high school.
It was cold, but I figured you'd be used to that, Michigan fella.
Yeah, it wasn't a big deal. Actually, it's funny story is when we got here, I took my kid outside, Elijah.
Yeah.
And I think it was like 60 degrees outside, and we were playing in shorts and with a t-shirt, and it's December, and everybody's all bundled up, and we had to hide underneath the slide because we were too hot. We were actually sweating when everybody's wearing sweaters and coats and everything, and then a little bit later.
Shut that.
Yeah.
We're having a party next door. Hang on.
So, a couple weeks later, I dropped my son Isaiah off to school, and I walk out. This lady starts yelling at me, and she's going nuts, and I didn't understand her. And I didn't understand what she was saying. And finally, I just stopped her. I'm sorry, ma'am. I know you're upset, but could you tell me what the problem is? She said, your son. I'm like, what did he do? She said, he has no jacket. And I said, is that a problem? She said, it's cold out here. And after the shock wore off, I said, oh, ma'am, no, this is not cold.
You don't understand.
So on the way here,
funny.
I drove down 80. So 80 goes to Chicago. I drove down 80 to get here.
Yeah.
And we went through Wyoming, and it was 5 degrees outside. And I was wearing exactly what I'm wearing right now, which this is a very visual podcast.
Yes.
So I have shorts on right now and sandals, and that's what I wore to California. It was 5 degrees outside. I'm pumping gas, and snow's flying sideways. And I came with my best friend Brett Lawrence, and we're both. I mean, we're Chicagoans.
Yeah.
And so my son, before we left, it was 20 degrees outside. Snow's flying sideways, and he won't zip up his jacket. And I'm looking at him because I don't want mom to get mad at him.
Yeah.
Hey boy, zip up your jacket. He's like, why, Dad? It's warm out here. And I'm like, that's my boy. That's my boy.
I love it.
Yeah. So anyway, all that.
You've softened some since then. You're not so hard
And
anymore.
no, I mean, I still wear shorts all year round for setup and teardown.
Yeah.
Just because it's a lot. We have a lot of ground to cover because the hub is not compact.
Right.
And so I have to usually hustle here and there. So it's just, I don't like wearing long pants.
Man, maybe I'm made for Chicago weather more than it, because I'm always hot.
Yeah.
Always hot.
I mean, I was walking outside on the way here. I'm like, man, this is perfect weather.
Yeah, it's good out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell people that I'm like if you get a giant turkey for Thanksgiving, like you have to let it thaw longer.
Yeah.
Just the heat transfer rate is not as. I think there's something like that. The surface area to mass problem it's a thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll let you keep that one, man.
All right. I'm still working on that theory. We'll see.
Yeah.
So, Hayward Resonate.
Yeah, Resonate Hayward.
So you were born and raised in Chicago?
No, man, I was born and raised in Saginaw, Michigan. Maybe you've heard of this dude named Draymond Green.
Yes.
So he was actually born and raised in Saginaw. I'm from a small village. Right. My village is Bridgeport, Michigan. I'm a Bearcat. Go Bearcats. If there's anybody out there listening.
Bearcats.
Yeah, class of '96. I'm old. Yeah, so I grew up Saginaw, Michigan, and then went to the University of Michigan, which is in Ann Arbor, and got married, and my wife and I moved to Chicago so I could go to seminary.
Right on.
To become a pastor.
Yeah.
When I was at Michigan, I had a call to become a pastor. What
does that sound like? That call.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's the best question you could ask all day. There is no definitive way to answer that question. I think the best way to think about a call, if anybody's asking, like, am I called to serve in res kids? Am I called to?
And I hope you are.
And man, if you're called to serve in res kids, let me know, and I will help you out any way I can. A call just kind of consists of two things. One is there's nothing else on your heart that you want to do. And so for me, if you ask me what I would do, like if for some reason I were to lose my job tomorrow, I can tell you exactly what I would do. The first week, after I lost my job, I would sleep all week. The second week, I would take a tour of California. I'd see Yosemite and some of the coastal, and maybe go to Redding and maybe San Diego. Maybe that'd take a couple weeks, but
Redding.
I mean, whatever. Just check things out. I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
I heard there's things in California to see, so I'd take a week or two to see that. So I'd sleep a week. I'd check things out for a week, and by the third week, I'd probably plant a church.
Yeah.
That's how you know you have a call, because there's nothing else that you could possibly do. So I went to school to become a doctor, And by my second year, I couldn't think of anything else but ministry. I didn't know what that meant necessarily. It wasn't like I was called to Hayward, California. I didn't know Hayward existed 6 years ago.
Right.
I had never even heard of. Yeah. So that's the first part of the call, is just in your own heart. God slowly starts to change your desires, so that you just feel like he shows you what you're made for.
Yeah.
Like, this is what you're made for. But then the second part of a call, and this is a piece that especially a lot of Protestant Christians miss because we have a low view of the church. And that's just the church. And when people think of the church, they think of the Pope, or they think of somebody in authority.
Right.
But
monolithic thing.
Yeah.
Unattainable.
Well, and I think people, because of, unfortunately, the church has a checkered past.
Yeah.
And so they're very suspicious, and they're right to be honest with you, for just various reasons. But except they miss out on this, that the church, meaning the people that you do life with, the people that are in authority over you, they should validate your call. In other words, they should be able to look at your work, the things that you're doing in the church serving, and saying, yes, we affirm that God has given you a gift of whatever that gift is. And so for me, person after person, from church after different church, different denominations, the pastors, the leaders, the disciplers, the people in authority continue to affirm my call, and actually my wife's call as a pastor's wife, just into ministry. It was very clear. And I went from freshman year wanting to be a doctor, and my senior year just being affirmed by a lot of different people in different churches that this is what I'm called to do. So I think it's both. So if you're wondering what a call is, I mean, the best way to figure out what your call is to just jump into ministry. And I can think of no better ministry than Res Kids. You guys do. No, really. I mean, I'm not even just plugging you, although I am. You guys have, you need actors. Yep. You need tech people. You need small group leaders. You need people to pray for your ministry. You need administrative people. And all of those gifts are being used in Res Kids. I can't think of a single gift that would not be used in Res Kids. And so if you don't know what your call is, jump in. And I'm sure somebody like Webb, or on our campus, it's Ren now. Rennie.
Yeah. Welcome aboard, Rennie.
Yeah, Rennie, we love you. We're excited you're on the team. But, that's what a good leader does. A good leader doesn't just try to get something out of you. They're trying to develop you. And that's what the church does. It tries to develop. That's what my job is, to help people develop their gifts. Yeah. And that's what people did in my life. I had lots of disciplers. So I can point to, it's like Greg Brown and Steve Clark and Nate Ardle, Eric Flood, Robbie DeMarini, and now Ryan Kwan. Is just men that God has brought into my life to develop my pastoral gifts.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, we're right now going through a phase where we're trying to cast a vision for people on how they can get plugged into Res Kids specifically. So we're doing the same thing.
Jump in.
Yeah.
Just come.
And I need people to do art.
Yeah.
I need people who can act, who can sing, who can play a tambourine, or even like just jump around and be goofy. I have that's a gift.
I would say, even, and you can correct me, and I'm sure you will, but even if you don't necessarily quote unquote love kids.
Oh yeah.
We have a place for you in Res Kids.
Absolutely.
There's stuff that we need done.
Yep.
Yeah. So jump in, please.
Come on.
Yep.
Let's go.
Yep.
We need you.
And then when you do that, and this is what people miss though, is try to find the right place where you feel like you're coming alive.
Right.
But more important than that is talk to the people around you and ask them what they see. And don't be offended when they say, no, you probably shouldn't preach. Or you're letting your rhythm's a little off.
Yeah.
And that's what the church needs to do, right? I mean, I'm not administratively gifted.
Yes, me neither.
And there are just things that I'm not good at.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the more I use my gifts to help people grow, it allows me to use my gifts properly as well. Yeah. That's how the church is supposed to work. That's Ephesians 4.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yep.
So at what point when you graduate college,
yep,
and you have masters in divinity, or what was
I graduated from Michigan with a Bachelor of Science.
Okay.
With an emphasis in biology.
And when did that go into a ministry?
It doesn't.
Okay.
So, so the University of Michigan is not a school that produces pastors.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
They
so
produce winning football teams. Right.
I wish that were true.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest and say,
sorry.
not recently. It's been a while. It's been since I was there in 1997. Anyway, Michigan's good at a lot of things. Producing pastors is not one of them.
Right on. So how do you get there when you're in Michigan?
You know, I really valued my undergraduate degree, my undergraduate experience, not the degree. Sorry, because I went to school. Across the hall was a Jewish guy named David. Fantastic dude, loved him. Most of my best friends had their ancestry traced back to India.
Huh.
Yeah, we had a cool fraternity, Tau Alpha Gamma for Taj.
Nice.
Which was pretty awesome. My name was Aurelio Baha'i, which was cool. You know, and I just went to school with people that didn't know Jesus, and that just gave me a great opportunity to share my faith with them.
Yeah.
And just learn how to talk to people and not shout at them. Love them, listen to their complaints, listen to their fears, and just learn how to just treat people as people, not as these arguments that we have to win or projects. And so I'm really thankful that I went to a state school. I'm thankful that I didn't go to a Christian college for undergrad. There's nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of kids that go to Christian college, and that's for them. I think that's a great path.
Yeah.
My wife and I have talked about this, and we kind of feel like for our kids, we want them to go to state schools.
Yeah.
Unless it's clear that they're supposed to become a missionary as soon as possible, then we can send them to the Moody Bible Institute. But otherwise, there's just so much you have to learn. You see other worldviews out there, and I just remember one of my friends back in my freshman year. He had just one of our other friends. I'm sorry, I forget their names, so that shows how good friends they are. But
you'll know who you are.
Yeah, trust me, I'm sure he's not listening.
Okay,
but he went to a church service. I didn't invite him. This other guy did.
Yeah,
but the guy that invited him wasn't really a believer, and the Indian gentleman was offended that the pastor said that Jesus was alive. You know, I grew up Catholic. I grew up hearing that my whole life.
Right.
And he looks at me and he's like, "Will, you actually believe that this man rose from the dead?" And I just appreciated that this guy actually understood what we were saying.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, that is kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is kind of crazy. And then I could say, yes, I believe that Jesus is alive.
Yeah.
But like, you might not have that experience at a Christian school. Or,
true, yeah.
you know, I mean, maybe you will, maybe you won't. I know there are non-Christians that go, so. But for me, that was a training ground for sure. The state school. Yeah. And, you know, I was in a fraternity, which had its own challenges and just all these different things that I feel like God used to really just help me connect with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really thankful, and God uses different paths. Again, some of those guys that I mentioned before, you know, they went to Christian colleges their whole lives, and they're great pastors.
Right.
Yeah, they're great. But for me, I'm very thankful. And I don't mind being a Michigan fan. I'm wearing a Michigan shirt right now.
It hasn't worn off yet.
No, this is a very visual podcast. You can see my shirt.
Yes. Oh, anybody who knows you knows that yellow M follows you.
Yeah. Maize and blue, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, your question was about how do I get to divinity school?
Right.
So,
seminary and all that. Yeah.
I had a fantastic mentor my junior and senior year. His name was Nate Ardle. He's still with Campus Crusade for Christ. And he actually went to Dallas. Dallas is one of the big schools. Okay. And so I talked to him about seminary. I mean, it was pretty clear. I was supposed to become a pastor. So the next step, traditionally what it's been is normally you get an undergraduate somewhere, and then you have to get a graduate degree, a master's degree. And typically it's called a Master of Divinity. Right. And that's called that's like the, I'm trying to remember the name. It's just the type of degree that you need specifically for pastoral ministry. Most churches that are looking for, especially for a teaching pastor, will require that you have a Master of Divinity. And the reason why they want that, as opposed to like a New Testament or anything like that, is because you learn Greek and Hebrew, which is helpful for preaching. Right.
I always think that adds like some spice. Like if you can, this word in Greek is X, blah, 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 you know, there's some fancy word. You're like, oh wow, he must know what he's talking about.
I mean, A guy can know just enough Greek or Hebrew to be dangerous.
Yeah, to get in trouble.
To get in trouble. I will say this. It's helpful because if you know any foreign language, you know that English is a pretty bland language. It's been flattened out.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like it used to be really deep and now it's kind of flat.
Yeah.
So we use the word love. I love my wife. I love my dog. I love pizza. It's all the same word.
Right.
And, even just in Spanish, you would use different words. I would say to my daughter, te amo, I love you. But, I would say, if I'd say I love pizza, I would say me encanta. And that's what McDonald's had, that, if you remember, like 10 years ago, they had a slogan. It's like, me encanta, me encanta. That means I love, that's the same word, love,
Huh.
But it's not love. It means I really enjoy this. So there's that distinction in Spanish. And that's basically what's true in Greek and Hebrew. It's
Right.
it's a little bit more clear. I wouldn't say it's absolutely clear, but it's more clear.
Yeah. Well, and the very, 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 very minimal Greek and Hebrew that I know, I found that it adds an element of like intimacy to Scripture, if that makes sense.
You're gonna have to define that for me.
It's like this.
I'm like, no.
It's like what I'm reading is, it's in my common language and all that, but I consider like knowing that this was in Greek is similar for me as I would imagine like going to Jerusalem would be, and like, that's the Sea of Galilee. Mm-hmm. Like I have pictures of this place in my mind, but there's the real thing. I can't read Greek for beans, but to see like scripture, like a scroll that has like Greek writing on it, you're like, oh my gosh, like this thing is so ancient and old, and it just adds this like air of just, it's really richer in my mind.
The irony is that the New Testament was written in what's called Koine Greek, and that was the street language. It wasn't refined. So the Romans would have scoffed at the language of the New Testament.
That's funny.
It's really funny. And if you go to like at the University of Michigan, for example, I took a New Testament class, and the professor was saying, the classical Greek scholars, they won't even touch this New Testament because it's so unrefined.
Whoa.
But what's beautiful about that is that God speaks the language of the people.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole message right there.
The whole reason why it's written in Koine is because people from many different ethnicities were able to use that. It was the lingua franca of the day.
It was for the common people.
As opposed to the classical Greek, the things that Homer, used.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I never knew that. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you can go. I'm glad you came.
All right. Glad you guys.
Taught me something already. That's cool.
Yeah, it's real cool.
So take me through your, just a real quick summary of what the ministry experience in Michigan was for you before getting the call to move like you did.
So my wife and I got married, and then we moved to Chicago so I could go to school at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School.
Okay.
Which is a EV free divinity school, which is what we are. That's their denomination. That's where Bridges. We love you, Bridges. We're thankful for how you helped launch Resonate.
Amen.
We're really thankful for you. And so EV free. I graduated in 2006, and when I graduated, I was already part of a church.
Okay.
And they brought me on staff. I think 2 years after that, I was the director. I wasn't a pastor at that point because it's just a process. I was the director of young adults and college ministry.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was pretty rad. Yeah. So we were in a community that, it's kind of like the Bay, in the sense that a lot of younger people, that when they graduate, they have to leave because it's so expensive.
Yes.
So they can't really afford to live there. And so a lot of young folks are either living with their parents or moving away.
Yep.
And that's where we were. And so our church did not have very many young adults in it. And my wife and I kind of looked around and said, is there anything we could do to change that? And so we just started with a small group. And to our surprise, our first small group had like 20 people in it.
Oh,
It was just like
okay.
we just like
That's
talked
not-
to people who talked to people because
That's not a small group.
different young adults were scattered to different churches, and so
Okay.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But there wasn't really anything for young adults at any of these churches because there wasn't critical mass.
Huh.
Yeah. So
That's cool.
by God's grace, that grew, and then the next year we started a college ministry. And my wife and I were both Campus Crusade for Christ people. And
Right on.
Cru's motto so resonates, is disciples making disciples for the glory
Yep.
of God, which is great. And Cru's is turning lost students into Christ-centered laborers, which is that's a pretty rad mission statement. It's lost people. So it's
Yeah.
not just taking like
Right.
crusty Christians, but it's like actively
Right.
seeking people who don't know the Lord. Not just helping them become mature, but basically making disciples that make disciples. Is basically what their thing is. And so their motto is win, build, send. You win people to Christ, you build into them, and you send them out to go do the Lord's work.
Awesome.
And so that's
Wow.
that's our DNA. That's always been our DNA. And in the same way that there wasn't a young adult ministry at our church, we saw that there wasn't a college ministry, even though there were kids coming back for the summer. There was nothing for them. And so my wife, I give her a lot of credit. We did college ministry in the summertime. We had 2 big nights. First night was what we called our outreach night. I basically had I think at its height we had like 50 college students coming, 50 to 75, and I would just do a little sermon.
Is that your house?
No, it was at
Oh,
the church.
okay.
But I mean we're married at the time, so my wife.
Yeah.
Being totally behind this and helping out in another way. I'll tell you the second way that was at our house.
Yeah.
But the first night was at the church. I'd do like a sermon for like 20 minutes or so, just helping people understand the scriptures. It was all about helping them understand how to read the scriptures.
Yeah.
But then after that, we had small group leaders. We'd break up into about 7 small groups, which was pretty awesome. So we'd do that. And then once that was done, we kind of basically had party night for the rest of the night. So we'd start at 7 and we'd be done at like 1 a.m. So we had a gymnasium where people would just play soccer or whatever, basketball or whatever they wanted to play. This was when the Wii first came out. So we had the projector that projected on a wall. So we'd play like Mario Kart
Yeah.
upstairs. And then on the other side of the video game area was like a cafe. So we'd bring like our espresso machine and like make stuff. And so that was one night. And then the other night was what we called heavy discipleship and then deeper study. So the small group leaders, they were our actual leaders. And we had them basically sign a contract that like we were going to pour into them, but we were pouring into them so that they'd pour into other people.
Right.
Like we wanted them to find somebody that was younger than them. We wanted them to find somebody who was about their age and just pour into them and to have the same small group every single week so they could get to know their people.
Yeah.
Which was pretty awesome. So we had them over our house. Amber did a great job. She, like college students, they love pizza or whatever, but Amber's like, we're not doing pizza. So she'd do like some kind of crazy salad. I don't know, man. I'm just not a salad guy, but she'd like bake stuff and we would feed these kids and we'd eat with them and we would just go over like ministry stuff with them and just how are they doing and how can we help them grow and what questions do they have. And they had a lot of good questions. There were a lot of things that we had to sort through, but having that meal provided space, and then other leaders could see like, yeah, I'm struggling with that too.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. So they'd go from like 5 to like 7:30, and then at 7:30 we'd invite and it was open. The first part you had to be a leader to come to that, but the second part of the night we would study systematic theology, and we went through Tom Odom's Classic Christianity. And one year we went through the study of Christ, and the second year we went through the study of the Holy Spirit.
Wow.
So that's what we did.
Pretty heavy for
And
young adults.
man, we had a packed living room, man. We had a packed living room. We had the kids were digging it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and they did a good job. I mean, that really is when people grab the mission and go, that's when things happen.
Yeah.
I mean, the leader obviously precipitates a lot of that, makes it happen, but people have to grab onto it, and these college kids did. They did a great job.
Well, and it sounds like you kind of set that expectation from the outset.
Yeah,
like,
I mean
this is a missional thing. Like your involvement means this is happening. Yeah.
And we had people step down because they didn't agree. I'm like, that's great. It's no big deal.
Yeah. Well, the worst thing you want to do is jump into something and then like just fake it.
Yeah,
Like you want to actually be
it
there.
was actually very respectful. It's just like,
Yeah.
I know one guy that was like, I'm not sure about how you're going about this. I'm like, yeah, it's no problem, man. It's
Yeah.
great. I want to be your rabbi, but like if you're not down, that's great. Just make sure you find somebody that you can be an authority under.
Right.
Because that's the thing that people don't understand. It's like, we're all under authority of somebody. Like,
Yeah.
even Pastor Ryan's under the authority of the elders.
Right. Right.
So just be under somebody's authority that you can be under.
That's for the young adults thing. People say that about the Bay Area,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's not a college town. There's no young people, and there is that that what do we call it? The urban sprawl,
Mm-hmm.
young 20-something flight out of the Bay because it's expensive unless you
is.
work for Google or Apple
And
or
some do.
Oracle,
Facebook.
and plenty of them do, and that's great. But if you don't have that, people leave, and so a lot of people feel like just young people just don't have a place here. But
Yeah.
the thing is, they are here.
Yep. More than you think.
Exactly, and
More than you
that's.
think.
I mean, to say it's not a college town is crazy. We got Cal State Hayward, we got Berkeley, we got Ohlone right up here with like 30,000 students or whatever. Like, where are they coming from? Well, they live in Fremont, Newark, Union City, Hayward.
Yep.
So they're here.
Yeah, they just need somebody to, whenever I'm working with leaders, especially back in Chicago,
Yeah.
it was always helping people see, if you have a place for somebody, it's going to be tough sledding for about a year or two. But once you hit critical mass, people start hearing that there's a place for them.
Yeah.
And that people will care for them. And they just we had people from different churches coming. And it wasn't about stealing from different churches. It was like the other churches didn't have this kind of ministry.
Yeah.
And they would ask is it okay? I'm like, for us, it's okay. Just make sure you're honoring your leaders at your other church.
Right.
Yeah,
it seems like people in a lot of ways are starving for just an authentic belonging.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am welcome here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a place here. I have people here. I'm known here. Like, and yeah, they're hungry for it. And I wish there was more folks trying to tackle that.
Yeah,
I
and
feel-
that's actually our job, as church leaders. We just need to equip people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
Yeah. So come to Res Kids. We'll teach you how to do it.
Yeah, we'll start there.
We'll keep plugging that away, man.
Keep
Come
it
to Res
coming.
Kids.
Keep it coming.
Yeah.
So at what point in that journey did the concept of moving to California like come into being? Like, tell me that stretch for you.
Yeah, man. So being in Chicago, I'm more of an urban guy, and the typical career path for pastors in Chicago is you're kind of an associate pastor of a church, and then you need to go to like the cornfields in Nebraska or Minnesota. No, this is really what it is. And you go pastor a church of 50.
Yeah.
And if you do well there, then you're going to pastor a church of 200 in a slightly more urban. Maybe you get to a village, that has like a Little Caesars or something, right? And then if you do well there, then maybe you can move to like Minneapolis, St. Paul, or you
can work your way back.
Kansas City, yeah. And then finally, like after you cut your teeth enough in all those different places, you can come back to Chicago. And my wife is an urban planner. I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I'm functionally bilingual.
Yeah.
I feel like God has given me the ability to work with a lot of different ethnicities.
Yeah.
And it just didn't seem like a good stewardship of who we were. It just felt like if we're gonna quote unquote move up the ladder or whatever that means, or whatever God's calling us to, we should try to do in Chicago. And so I felt like God was calling me to something different. I didn't know what it was. I had two thoughts. And again, this is where the church comes in. These are gifts that people affirmed. And the first one was church planting, because I had done it. We were part of that church where we had the young adult ministry. We actually left that church to plant a church.
Oh.
So I went with my old boss, and we planted a church outside of Chicago. And at this point is where I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, what's my next step? And, again, everybody around me is affirming these two gifts. I'm a church planter or I'm a preacher. Like, those are the two things that I was looking for. So I was looking for, in Chicago, like churches that were looking for either a teaching pastor, specifically, because I love communicating. I love God's word. I mean, to me, if it's boring, shame on us. Like if we make it, if we communicate it in a boring way, I mean, whenever I'm working with AMP kids, it's got to be AMP kids. It can't, AMP, by the way, for those of you who aren't from Resonate, are like middle school and high school kids.
Yeah.
But like not res kids, but AMP kids. I always find like the juiciest passage, like the craziest stuff where like Abraham is like gonna sleep with his, like his wife's maidservant.
The shock value. Yeah.
And I'm not just doing it for shock value, but I'm like, you guys, the stuff is in here. It's wild.
It's a crazy story.
It's crazy stories, and they're good stories, and the reason why they're good is because we're crazy. I mean, they just point out our human nature, right?
It's the first reality show,
and it's the reason why I don't think a human being wrote that book. There's just too much dirt in there. But anyway,
who would do that? That's crazy.
So I was thinking either church planter, or teaching pastor, and we kept applying I say we because my wife and I are a team, but I kept applying to a lot of different places and just kept coming up snake eyes. And it was it was to the point where I was even working with a search firm called Vanderbloemen. And the people that were handling my file were frustrated that these churches they were confused. They were like, you're filling out all these boxes that people say they want. They want, exactly what you are. Cause they'd seen my tape. They'd seen just different stuff, and they're like, we don't know what to do. And so, my wife and I, we kind of just agreed. We're like, maybe God wants us somewhere else, because we were specifically looking in Chicago.
Yeah.
And so it was just kind of this moment of surrender where I was so frustrated and confused and just said, okay, God, fine. I'll go wherever you want to go. And up to that point, I had actually said I've spoken these words out of my mouth. I will never go to California.
Oh, no.
But it wasn't because I didn't want to go to California. It was because it was so far.
Yeah.
And so I figured if I've got to get on a plane to go to California to see my mom, then I might as well go to Brazil, because I've been a missionary in Brazil for a couple weeks. Or I might as well go to China, or I might as well go somewhere.
Just adds
like
a few hours.
if I've got what's the difference, right? If I got to get on a plane or I got to fly my mom out, then there's plenty of pastors in the United States.
Yeah.
Maybe I can go do some work in Latin America or whatever.
Huh.
So we opened it up. It was a Sunday night. I remember it like it was yesterday. So I just said, you know what? Let's go anywhere. So my wife gets on the internet. And that night she's like, hey, there's this church called Resonate. And I'm not joking. It's like that night where we said, let's just go anywhere. She's like, there's this church called Resonate. And I'm like, that's an interesting name.
Cool.
And she's like,
trendy.
Yeah, exactly. Does their logo look like a coffee stain? I was like, anyway. And she said, but it's in the Bay and I'm in Chicago.
Right.
And I just looked at her and said, which Bay?
What Bay? Yeah.
Like Green Bay? Is that the Bay you're talking about?
Tampa Bay?
Yeah, Tampa Bay, Saginaw Bay. That's where I'm from, Saginaw Bay.
Right.
And she's like, no, the Bay. And I'm like, what do you mean the Bay? She's
really?
Like, the Bay. And then it finally clicked, and I said, do you want to move to California? And she's like, well, I don't want to move to California, but as I read this job description, it's basically you.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I applied, and like within weeks, we were getting on a plane to interview out here.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like as soon as we said, God, we'll go wherever you want, like the job just kind of fell in our lap. That doesn't always happen. That's not usual.
Yeah.
I just want to make that clear.
Right.
But for us, that was pretty cool to see God working that way.
It is something amazing if you say, okay, I'm willing.
Mm-hmm.
And
like if somebody was willing to work in res kids,
yes, if
God would find a way to get.
And if he doesn't, I will. No.
But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I think that's always the biggest problem, right? It's our hearts, and I got to say, in moving out here, my mom has been really supportive. She knows we're supposed to be out here.
Wow.
My brother's been supportive. Amber's family's been supportive.
We call that confirmation.
Yeah, and sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. So I don't want
Right.
people to bank on that, but
Right.
just my experience in moving out here is that the Lord has been more than gracious to us.
Yeah.
More than gracious to us.
That's amazing, because in my mind, I love to think that I'm the type of guy who says, yes, Lord, I'll go, like, whatever you need me to do.
We all think we're that
I'll
guy.
do it. I would, well, I'd love to think that I'm that guy.
Right.
But gosh, I mean, the the two things that he could ask me to do that scare me the most is one, to like go be a missionary in Africa. Like, not just like, oh, I'm going there for a week, but like, I'm going to go teach English for 5 years.
Right.
Like, that's terrifying to me. The other one is like, let me go across the country to a place I've never been and try to start a church there.
Yeah.
Like, those are the two things where I'm like, I don't feel that I'm being called to do that.
Yeah.
But if I'm who I say I am, would I?
Yeah.
And gosh, that is, so when,
I think it's very rare
gosh,
when God gives us a specific directive like
Yeah.
that. I can think of 2 times where I felt like God was pretty clear, and I've been following him for 20 years.
Huh.
I think the first one was my call into ministry period. Like, it was pretty clear.
Right.
It was pretty clear. And not an audible voice, but pretty clear.
Close as it gets.
Yeah, it was pretty clear. And then the second one was just feeling like this was where we were supposed to be. Because a lot of things fell into line that just don't make a lot of sense. So Hayward feels, there's a reason why Draymond Green loves Oakland. It's a lot like Saginaw.
Yeah.
And Hayward isn't Oakland. I'm not saying it is, but I love Hayward. I feel Hayward is my hometown.
Yeah.
Hayward is home. I don't want to be anywhere else. I actually don't want it to change too much more. I love it the way that it is. And that's even without even talking about Resonate Hayward. I mean, the people of Resonate Hayward, the disciples that are there, the way they understand the gospel of that Jesus accepts them because of what he's done, not because of what they do.
Yeah.
That they can't ever lose his love, and they did nothing to deserve it. And because they understand that, it's transformed the way that they love one another, and they love Amber and I. And so I feel very at home there. I've never been more honored and loved and supported.
Yeah.
As with the members that Resonate Hayward.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think what you're saying is the fear that most people have, but very rarely does God give, in my humble opinion, in my experience, which is not very, significant, but
you're here.
Well, I think we worry about that, and then we forget about the stuff that he has commanded us to do, which is like fight for the little guy,
right, and
accept people because of who he is and not who they are, you know, and just all these small things that he's trying to do in our lives, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. There was a there was a pastor at a church that we were going to merge with back in Chicago, and they did this great. They did a prom for special needs kids.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was, which is really awesome. And the church that I was a part of at the time didn't want to get behind it. They were really, not just that, but just the whole thing. They were asking, tons of questions about the merge, and there was a lot of stuff that was triggering them. But he started talking about why they do the special needs prom, and he says, we look at, we're evangelicals, we have a high view of scripture, but then we look at the passage where Jesus says, go invite the blind and the lame and the poor and the homeless and the misfit. And we look at that passage and say, I wonder what he meant. And he's like, I think Jesus meant go invite the poor and the blind and the lame and the misfit, right? And I think just in my own life, I'm even though I'm a pastor, I'm looking for quote unquote God's will. And the will is just, man, bring his peace to the world. Right. Because he's brought his peace to my world. The mission is making disciples that make disciples, but we do it by bringing his peace, his shalom, right? That's what we're called to do. So we die, so he died so we could live. And so as we die, other people live. It's the only way we'll find our lives.
There's another jewel.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, well, then that's Jesus, right?
I'd say, I mean, when you say it like that, like we said, when I asked you to define a calling, right, you couldn't not do it. Yeah. It's like scary, yeah.
Terrifying. I lost 15 pounds when I moved here. I couldn't eat. Till I got to Marty Smith's house and he made tri-tip. I've never had tri-tip before. The first time I finally started eating. Yeah, there's no tri-tip in the Midwest. It's a special Bay Area cut. What? I mean, you can get it from a butcher, but they don't stock it.
You're serious?
I'm totally serious.
There's no tri-tip.
No tri-tip.
Oh my!
It's starting to get more popular because of the Food Network and all that stuff, and so bougie people have heard of tri-tip, but most your typical Midwesterners.
Get out of here.
Yeah, but you're right. It's scary,
Oh.
and I think that's the great thing about presenting a walk with Jesus is like taking a step at a time.
Yeah.
Because as you take a step, you realize that he's faithful.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you, for Amber and I, we've been married almost 20 years. And, a lot of that is me being in seminary and her working. And a lot of that is her being a stay-at-home mom and also running a business and me being a pastor. And
yeah.
Pastors aren't overly paid. They're great. God's always been faithful. But, sometimes it's a struggle, especially with a stay-at-home mom, which is great. We're happy about that.
Yeah.
That she can be with the kids. But through all that, it's not even just that we've never been hungry or we've never been without. The Lord has provided that for sure. But we've been married 20 years. We've never purchased a car.
That's right.
We've had 4 cars.
Huh.
And God has provided 4 cars for us in the last 20. We've never had a car payment.
Wow.
He's just always provided that for us.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
Wow.
There's no explanation for that.
No. Well, there is one.
I mean, there's no earthly explanation for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not just the goodwill. It's not like a church came up to me and was like, "Hey, you're a pastor.
Yeah.
Take this car." It was really by him supernaturally putting it in someone's heart and saying these people need a vehicle.
Right.
Yeah.
It's provision.
Yeah.
Right,
and again, I'm not saying go into ministry so you can get a free car, but
yeah.
What I'm saying is I can stand up in a court of law and say Christ has always provided for my family.
Yeah. He's pretty good at figuring out the details of what he wants you to do.
Yeah, and so as we've experienced that, it's not that there isn't fear in another next step. It's another step because it's a bigger step.
Yeah.
But as you look back at his track record and how he's been faithful, you can take that step. And sometimes you won't, and that's okay, because you're not defined by the steps you take. You're defined by what he says you are.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I've found just in my own slightly shorter walk that I feel like when I know I'm on track, when I feel a little scared of it, and when something in me knows that what I'm trying to do, like if I were to just do it, it wouldn't actually happen.
Yeah, sure.
Like this
is like planting a church.
Yeah, like this thing is not really possible.
Yeah.
By who am I? What am I? A trucker, fireman?
That's great.
And you want me to do what? With who?
So I'm going to give a hat tip to Jen Haya right here. She's got a story about that.
Yeah.
About Resonate Hayward. So we're about 5 months away from launch, and I've got about 40 people in the room, and we're all kind of feeling good about ourselves because they're like, "Man, we got 40 people in the room. This is going to be awesome, right?" And I actually stole this from Pastor Ryan. I don't know if he did this when Resonate launched, but basically there's 40 people in the rows and they're worshiping and they're excited, which is great. I mean, that's good. But I need to help them understand that, we're planting this church to be on mission, and we're planting this church to reach our family and friends and the community.
Yeah.
And so at one point, and Jen tells the story. She's like, "I remember you did this. You basically, you said, if you're in the band, I need you to come up here because you're going to be playing. And if you're in Res Kids, you need to leave. Because you're not going to go to church for a year.
Yeah.
You're going to be watching kids, which is like basically what you're going to do
until the 2-service format.
Until the two, yeah. Which and then I said, if you're in guest services, you need to be along the wall because you're going to be helping people find their way to the seats. And if you're going to be, if you're going to be part of the parking crew, I need you over there. And there was one guy in the chairs. So these chairs were full. There's only one guy in the chairs.
You're in charge.
Well,
no.
And I just looked at everybody and said, this is our church. If we don't invite people, if we don't pray for them, if we don't live missionally.
Wow.
And Jen was like, I about had a panic attack when you did that because I thought this is going to fail. There's no way we could fill a church with people, right? And then she said quickly, which is great. But then I learned over the last few years that God can. Like God can change people's lives.
Go Jen.
Yeah, Jen Haya, rock star.
She's been on this.
Well,
yeah.
Good.
She was here. She was number 5, I think.
Number 5 is alive.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Man, okay, so you get the call coming to Hayward.
Yeah, I'm coming to Hayward, man.
And then you come to visit.
You're talking about the interview process?
The interview process. So
so then we're not coming yet. We're trying to figure out if it's the call.
Yeah, we're jumping around a bit, but that's okay. It's our thing. We can do what we want.
Yep.
Some of the structure for where this is going is Resonate is like, we want to plant churches.
Yeah.
Like that's the best way, for us to leverage everything we've got is to start another church for even more people to go to. So we're starting to gather steam. We're starting to collect people who are at the Fremont campus who are interested, who want to do it, and they're starting to kind of, get on the same page and organized. And that's the point where we're like, okay, we need the guy.
Yeah.
And then there you are, willing, and that night we meet you, and then you come out to visit us. I'd love your, where was your head at for that trip? Like, because you're feeling this call. Like, I think this is where I'm supposed to go,
Yeah.
And where were you at, on that visit?
Yeah, so, I mean, you've been backing up a little bit before that. I was interested in planting churches as a possible call. Like I said, I knew it was planting churches or preaching.
Yeah.
And the job description just felt like this is something that I could do, and we were trying to discern if it was something that God was calling us to do. But the biggest reason why Amber and I pursued this thing, really full steam, was the description of Resonate in general. And the thing that got our attention was something called gospel centrality, and it was something that we didn't even know what it was. We'd heard of something like it before, and even for the previous 10 years, I was trying to ask all of my mentors, what does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean to be gospel centered? I had no idea.
Yeah.
I think every believer, you're not a believer if you don't believe that Jesus died for your sins, and he takes the penalty for you.
Yeah.
That's every Christian, which is great. But unfortunately, most Christians, and I include myself in that camp, 5 years ago was,
yeah, me too.
Well, Jesus died for your sins, but now the rest is up to you, big boy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And in the job description, talking about a gospel-centered movement,
right?
It just flipped my world. And I remember Grace Maltzby sent me the membership manual for Resonate.
Yeah.
And one of the first sections was, what is a gospel-centered movement? And I read this. I was in bed reading this PDF. And it's a Tim Keller quote. I didn't know it at the time. Brian stole it, but it's a Tim Keller quote. And it says, the Gospels aren't the ABCs of Christianity. In other words, everybody thinks, even this is the book of Hebrews, the book of Galatians. Everybody's like, hey, if you want to believe in Jesus, that's a good start. But in Galatians, it's circumcision. And in Hebrews, it's the law, right? Yeah. It's basically man's work. Hey, Jesus is a good start, but you got to finish it.
Right.
And so Keller's quote is, the gospel isn't the ABCs. It's A through Z.
Yeah.
And I remember reading that and jumping out of bed and almost throwing my device at Amber, saying, you have to read this.
Eureka.
This is what we've been looking for. And so it talks about how the gospel doesn't just change our eternal destinies. It changes everything.
Yeah.
How it changes politics, how it changes the way we relate to men's and women's issues, the way it relates to sexuality, the way that it relates to everything. Everything is about who Christ is and what he's done and how he is flipping the script on human history.
Yeah.
And so it's not what we do, it's what he's done and how that would change even our own motivations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. And so for us, we wanted to come out here and just see what that actually meant. So that's great. That's great if Ryan and Scott believe this.
Right.
But what does the church actually believe?
Yeah.
And so I was part of a church network back in Chicago, and we had these ABCs or 1, 2, 3s or the 3 things that people had to know.
Yeah.
And we were considered a successful ministry if everybody down to the ushers knew these big 3 principles, right? And as I came and I started talking to people like Marco Marquez and just different folks like Ivan and Val and Justin and Amy and just different people like Tim and Jenny Louie.
Yep.
Every single person we talked to, and I'm not making this up, every single person we talked to actually could articulate the gospel. And our mouths dropped. we couldn't believe it, because it wasn't people just memorizing like a vision statement.
Right.
They actually understood the gospel. And so when they brought us here, we were at Alan and Phoebe Montemayor's house. And Phoebe had had a small group in MC the night before. And she had these women write on these pieces of paper lies they were believing and how the gospel crushes those lies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a small group leader.
Yeah.
And I looked at Amber and I said, even if we don't get this job, we have to come.
Wow.
We have to come, because there's something about the way that they're teaching people about the gospel that we don't know. So even if it was just for a year or two, we have to come.
Wow.
We'd never seen anything like that before.
I've heard you say that before. I totally forgot that.
Well, I say it a lot because it's true.
Yeah. Wow.
And you got to understand that I went to seminary.
Yeah.
You know, I was part of good churches.
Right.
And we were growing churches. You know, I mean, we the church that we planted actually merged with a dying church and resurrected the building, and it's now thriving, and it's a neighborhood church.
Huh.
But again, the gospel we preached was only the gospel so that people could go to heaven.
Right.
And it wasn't how Jesus, it was like 5 happy steps to a good marriage, as opposed to like, no, Christ is the purpose of marriage. Marriage points to the beauty of Christ. And the reason why you need to stay true to your covenant is not because God will throw you into hell if you get a divorce.
Right.
It's because Christ has covenanted with you, and he's never going to leave you. And he has plenty of reason to leave you.
Yeah.
And as you dwell on that, there's no way you could turn your back on the covenant with your wife. There's no way.
Yeah.
If you truly understood your own sin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's different.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah, hearing you say that, I almost a lot of times take it for granted.
Sure.
What we've got here.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons that we, in Res Kids.
There you go. Which you can sign up with Weber or Ren.
At resonatemovement.org.
It's Weber at resonatemovement.org if you want to sign up for Res Kids.
That's one of the reasons why we almost wholly write our own curriculum.
Yeah.
Because we struggle with that.
Yeah.
Because most kids' curriculum is, and I love what people put out. Videos are beautiful. The scripts, the layouts. I mean, the people put so much time and effort into it. And I find that a lot of the times the message is Jesus told this parable, and the point for the day is don't lie.
Right.
Or try harder, or be nice to people. Obey your parents. Do this, do that. It's very, because Jesus said so.
Right.
Because Jesus did it, you can do it. It's like it's very.
And so what's the weight that a church that's teaching that is putting on these kids' shoulders? Because these kids are going to do it. They're going to lie.
Right.
They're going to disobey their parents.
Yeah.
And the weight is, well, I could never be that kid.
Yeah.
And so that's not the only reason why, but that's a big reason why they turn away, as opposed to.
That's why I did.
And kids, you're gonna lie, and that's the reason why Jesus had to come to earth.
Yes.
You need a savior.
Yes.
And it is finished.
Yep.
That's totally different.
Every week.
Yeah.
We walk the kids through that.
That's great.
Process of like, okay, here's the principle that we're learning about God.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how Jesus comes into this, and now here's what it means to you.
Yeah.
You can't make the jump
without
plugging Christ in there and understanding, oh, he actually changed this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not don't lie. It's like, I'm going to lie. Thank God Jesus came and showed me this grace and mercy, and like, I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
It's my goal that the kids leave there not being, better kids.
No.
But that they would be falling more and more in love with this creator as they're just discovering all of these little facets of who he is through these stories that he put together for us in the Bible. And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time and you preach and teach too, but to be there and to look at somebody and see them falling in love with him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, How do I get to do this?
Yeah.
Is this real? Did that just happen? Did that first grader just make a gospel connection from like an Old Testament story?
That's it.
This is impossible.
Yeah.
But it happens every week.
And it's a big deal. And you know, if there are any people out there that are from Res Kids listening that you've already served there, this week on Hayward's campus, we're going to baptize 7 kids. That's
amazing.
That's your fruit.
Yeah.
That, like, praise God, right?
Amazing.
That's praise God, right? And so some of these kids we've actually had, we're like, they're basically like, try and stop me this time, because we didn't let them get baptized last time. They're like, no, we're getting baptized.
Yeah.
Like, we're following Jesus, right? Yeah, it's amazing.
It's beautiful.
Man. Yeah, and the good news is, you know, when I was in college, when I was in seminary, when I was at my previous stop, the weight I felt was I have to convince people. I have to have great arguments. I have to come up with every objection. I have to answer everything.
Right.
And now I feel like my job is just helping people see how beautiful Jesus is.
Yeah.
That's it. Jesus says in Mark chapter 4, as farmer, he spreads some seed. You know, sometimes the seed falls on hard path. Sometimes it's thorny.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes it's shallow, but sometimes it's good. And when it's good, it's good. It's 30, 60, 100 reproduction, right? And so, I mean, we just have to sow the seed, which means just preaching the gospel, just speaking good news to one another and to our community. Yeah.
So moving to California.
We did that.
You did that thing.
We put it on the wagon with the oxen. We stopped at Fort Laramie and Flat Rock, all those Oregon Trail places, Cheyenne.
Oh,
we actually did stop at Cheyenne.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's apparently the spot to be if the nukes go off, right? Cheyenne, Wyoming.
I just remember that from Oregon Trail.
I think
we were moving west.
That was from Walking Dead. Was Cheyenne.
I missed that season.
Yeah. Again, I've lived here my whole life, so the perspective of somebody coming to California is so valuable to me. I just love to know, like, what are you thinking?
What are we thinking by moving here, or?
Yeah. I mean, the housing market alone is intimidating for people to move here.
And for good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the best way for me to explain it is I felt like moving to California was moving to a foreign country where they happen to speak English.
Yeah. Kinda.
That's basically what California felt for me, because
we speak our own English here.
Well, I mean, it's the same English, but that was the only thing that was similar. I mean, just a real silly example. We were members of this like public pool, and they had this patch of grass that they watered. So there's grass in the summertime, and I just like take my feet off, and no dog has peed on it, unlike the grass where I live, So I take my shoes off so I can put my feet in grass, because that's what we do in the Midwest. There's grass. There's not like charred, leftover fire kindle, So it's just stuff like that all the time. You guys say soda, we say pop.
Oh yeah.
It's all kinds of little things like that, and
we have tri-tip.
You have tri-tip, which I'm in favor of.
Dutch Crunch bread.
Dude, I use all of Amber's passes to get Dutch Crunch bread.
Yes.
That's pretty.
It's worth it.
But the funny thing is, Californian culture, especially from an urban perspective, is the culture that we grew up with. Like the music that Brian and Alan and Marco grew up listening to is the music I grew up listening to.
Yeah.
So in those senses, it's really not that different. It's just the housing prices, the prices for even just throwing your trash away, it's out of control. But like I said, man, God has he's been more than faithful. I think it was 2 years ago, Resonate hosted a church planters informational meeting, and we invited 10 guys that were thinking about church planting. Yeah. And my wife, she came to that event, and she was talking to some of the wives, and of course the wives are freaking out. They're like this dude finally has a job. Yeah. I've been supporting him his whole life. He's finally found a job, and now he wants to go plant a church. Yeah. And my wife looks at every single one of those women and says, God's never been so faithful in our lives. she's not promising that because she's not God, but she's just giving testimony to what we've experienced. And, Amber saw, how alive I've become being a church planter, and that, this is what God made me for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you landed, I'm trying to remember. It was so long ago now.
December 2019.
Dang.
It was actually November 30th or 31st, whatever day is before December. I don't know how many days.
19? No, 17.
It's the day before.
17.
The day before December 1st, whatever
Okay.
day that is.
And then at that point, you started to meet the people who were like the Hayward Ca,
Yeah.
the Marcos, the Ewings, the Louis,
Yeah.
Brian
Brian and Michelle.
Yeah, all these people.
Absolutely.
Gosh, we miss them.
Yeah, man. Resonate Fremont. You guys gave us the best.
I know.
I mean, we just awesome people.
This is why I go watch like fights with Hayward people.
Yeah, man. Come on down.
All these, I love
DJ
it.
always gets the fight.
Anytime I can, I hang out with because I'm like, oh, it's like a reunion.
Dude,
it's beautiful.
Come on down.
Yeah, I got to get there on a Sunday. I still haven't been. Would you believe that?
Sure.
3 years.
I do believe that.
Because of Res Kids
Well,
thriving in Fremont.
well, I would never go to Fremont if I didn't have to preach.
Yeah. I love it when you do because I get to see once in a while Amber comes up.
Yeah.
She brings the kids.
Now, she usually comes up if she's not serving.
Right.
She's on the worship team at Hayward.
Yeah. And I see the kids first. That's
Yeah,
how
sure.
I know. Because they walk in, I'm like, oh, the Medels are here. You're like, yes. Where's your dad? You know what I mean?
we feel very honored when we're on Fremont's
Oh,
campus.
it's so cool.
Yeah, it's
So talk about some of that, like the pre-launch. You're getting ready. Like what did it look like to kind of put those pieces together before officially? I mean, you didn't have a spot yet. You had to pick a spot. You had to meet the team. You had to learn your way around. Like all that, the mechanics of like just how that went down.
and I had to learn the gospel.
Oh, by the way,
So
that's right.
you know part of this. I mean, you were in my first MC.
I was, yeah.
Yeah, Ryan Kwan led an MC, and you were his
Oh,
apprentice.
that's right. Yeah, he was living at the hotel.
He was living at the
His
hotel.
house flooded. No, that's funny. Yeah,
I remember.
that's right. Yeah.
I remember he had me lead, and it was the first time I heard the difference between good news versus good advice. And when I got here, I couldn't distinguish between the two. And if you're listening out there, good news is what Christ has already done. That's why it's called good news. It's an announcement.
Yeah.
So it's a heart change because of what Christ has done. So what Christ thinks about you, what Christ has done for you, your value because the creator of the world was crucified. That's good news. And good advice is what you do.
Right.
It's you ought, or how could you?
Yeah, you should.
Or why you should, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most of my Christian walk has been good advice, not good news.
Yeah.
So it's very guilt, which is really damaging for somebody like me. I'm the second born kid. I'm the pleaser. I'm the one that gets my worth from academics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so my life has been a life of good advice. Like, this is what you should do, right?
Hmm.
And so I remember we were in this, you and I were in this small group.
Yep.
And a gentleman talked about how, he needs to read his Bible more. And I was leading the MC and I didn't catch it. And thankfully Ryan jumps in and said, well, why do you think that is? And he's like, well, if I read my Bible more, then God will love me.
Huh.
And I didn't catch it, and Ryan lovingly was like, hey, this is the most important thing we do. And not MC, but actually helping people distinguish the difference between good news and good advice.
Yeah.
And so Ryan goes through and says, you should read your Bible more, but not so that God loves you, but so that you can hear that he loves you.
How much?
Yeah, how much? And so you read it until you actually want to read it because the good news soaks into your heart. Like, I want more.
Mhm.
It's like somebody's telling you how amazing you are or how much value you bring.
Right.
And that's what the scriptures do, because they point to the Son who was, mercilessly sacrificed for us, right? And so, like, value is determined on the price that's paid. And so as we look at that, it just shows us, the most important entity was broken for us.
So there's almost a replanting going on in you.
That's the irony, and that's the grace of God. And if you, I say this all the time because I think this is important for people to hear. God can change anyone's heart, and the only way He changes their hearts through the gospel is by hearing who Jesus is and what He's done. That's the only way that hearts are changed. And so I tell people, I'm like, hey, go to December, I think it was like December 26th or December 28th, 2015. Yeah. Go catch that tape. And that's my first sermon at Resonate. And it's awful. It's bad. It's really bad.
I'm trying to remember it.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you don't. Okay. And not that I'm a great preacher now, but
right.
I do know that when I get up on stage, the only thing I'm trying to accomplish is helping people see the sun.
Yeah.
As opposed to here's 3 steps to make your life better or your marriage better. And that's what that first sermon was. It was all about how we need to work harder and that kind of thing, which is garbage. Because we'll never work hard enough. I mean, if that's your standard, how do you know? How do you know you've gotten there?
Yeah.
How do you know?
You're never done.
And how do you know then that what Christ did for us is enough? Well, because the grave's empty.
Right.
That's how we know. The grave's empty. He's not there, right? And so it's done. Yeah. So that's the difference. And so I try to help people, sometimes people are frustrated on our campus because, there's not enough people making disciples. I'm like, okay, well, so that's our job, right? Our job is to take people aside, preach the gospel to them.
Yeah.
It's like they need to be discipled. They need, if you look at the scriptures, Paul was, as Scott Taylor likes to say, kicking some chicken, right? And so what ends up happening is Barnabas goes and takes him aside and shows him how to actually preach the gospel. And Paul's a Pharisee, man. Paul's a lawyer. Paul read the Bible in Hebrew. You're giving me
right.
a hat tip because I can know a few words in Hebrew. Paul read it in Hebrew, right? And Greek.
Right.
And
wrote a lot of it, by the way.
And he wrote a lot of it, but before all of that happens, Barnabas is taking him aside and mentoring him.
Huh.
Every single person, that's what Christ did. Christ spent tons of time with these 12 knuckleheads.
Yeah.
And specifically 3. And it changed the world.
Yeah. It's the best model of discipleship.
That is the model. The model is, and when you think about it, it's it's 3 years with these clowns.
Yeah. Right.
It's a long time. And so, I just look at my life. You wouldn't want to see the sin of my life. You'd be like, oh my gosh, this guy's a pastor. And it's just discipleship, man. It's just as the gospel continues to seep into my soul, it starts to kick out those lies. But it's a process. It's always a process. So that's what's going on as we're trying to organize and make launch team informational meetings, getting systems going, getting to learn the systems, getting to know all the procedures.
What a heck of a journey. I'd never considered the 2 tracks of things that were going on for you at the same time. You're transforming in the midst of doing this crazy thing.
and really not sure, how this was going to turn out, to be honest with you. And in April, Ryan took me to Exponential. Exponential is a church planting conference that's run by our friends in Chicago. I think it's Christ Community or Christian Community Church. I can't remember which one.
Right.
But there was a guy, I won't say who it was, that gets on stage that's basically saying, "Hey, if your church isn't exploding, then you're not the guy." And I hear that, and I'm about to plant a church, and I'm freaking out. I about threw up. Crap. That's looking at Ryan dang it, right?
Oh man.
And then right after him comes Matt Chandler, and Matt opens up to the Book of Acts, and he's talking about he's talking about Philip. That it's not the apostles that are going out to plant churches. It's Philip.
Yeah.
It's just some dude.
Yep.
he's just some dude. He's not even like, he's just some dude.
Yeah.
You know? And Chandler gets up there and basically says, you're called to plant this church, not somebody else. And you're called to plant the church that God is calling you to plant.
Huh.
And you can rest in that call. Because God is the one that called you, not somebody else. And then I finally started breathing again.
And you're like, yes.
And I'm like, oh, thank God.
I love you, Matt.
Well, because I know me, you know. And, you know, I'm next to Ryan Kwan.
Yeah.
Who's like on the main stage, who's got this 1,000-person church. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is that what I'm supposed to be? And the answer is no.
Nope.
I'm supposed to be what I'm supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of like, you know, just even the great thing about church planting is, like, God willing, someday we'll plant a church in Oakland or Alameda or in Pleasanton or in San Mateo or wherever, you know, Resonate Hayward's going to plant another church. And the beautiful thing about it is that church isn't going to look like Resonate Hayward. It's going to look like Alameda or San Mateo or Pleasanton. You know what I mean? And that's why we have to plant churches. Fremont's not Hayward. Hayward's not Oakland.
Yep.
Oakland's not Berkeley. I mean, I think this thing, as we continue to make disciples that make disciples, I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, that's how the church, that's why we're here today.
Yeah.
People were making disciples. 2 Timothy 2:2, the things you heard me say, right? Say to other people that are going to teach other people.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, so that's what was happening, man. That happened.
It's a mind-blowing experience here.
Yeah, it's wild. Then we had the summer. We were trying to help people be on mission, be intentional, telling them to, like. And one of the big things that I don't want to say we've lost, but, you know, it's hard to platform. It was easy to platform back in the day because we were just talking to like 40 people. Yeah. And the message was pretty sharp. Hey, if you guys don't start rowing, we're going to sink.
Right.
But one of the things when it came to the missional side of things, like, well, how is it that we actually live on mission? How do we meet people that don't know Jesus?
Yeah.
And the one thing that I try to tell people is, like, do things you love. You don't need to go door to door like a Jehovah's Witness or like a Mormon, and people don't like that anyway. I mean, it's just you're getting them on the day where they're off. You know, you're gonna ring the doorbell at 9 a.m. I'm gonna punch you. Okay, it's my one day to sleep in, right?
I thank God my door's so far from the street. I don't get any.
Exactly.
Only once, and she was trying to rob me.
Well, there you go.
Didn't go well.
Yeah. That's a scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I tell people, like, what do you love, man? Do you love softball? Go join a softball league.
Yep.
Like, don't ever ask Resonate. Don't ever. Well, I'll speak for Resonate Hayward. Don't ever ask me to do a Resonate Hayward softball league. I will grab your throat. Okay, because there's tons of nothing. Oh. Because whatever you're into, there are leagues out there already.
Right. Go.
People who don't know Jesus. Yeah. Like, go play with them, and then invite them into your house.
Yep.
Or go to their house, but, like, get to know them and get to love them, right? And I was trying to help everybody understand that, like, man, whatever you're into, man, just go do that. If you're into esports, go to the mall where they have these esports dens or whatever. You know what I mean? Right. Like, whatever it is, just go, and that's just your natural in.
Yeah.
Yeah, get to know people, love them, pray for your neighbors, get to know them.
So you started with 40. And then
it's 40, 50. I don't think we have the exact number. We had like 40 kids or 40 adults and like 20, 25, 30 kids. There's a lot of kids.
That's right. Yeah, everybody that went had like 5 kids.
Yeah, between me, the Marquezes, and the Del Rosarios, we have 11 kids.
Yeah.
It's a lot of kids.
We got kids coming out of everywhere.
Yeah, we have 100 kids in Hayward right now.
Gosh.
That doesn't include AMP, which is at about 20, 25.
It's amazing. That's a lot. That's a crazy ratio. Because you get...
It's a lot.
300 people or so now, something like that.
Yeah, it's somewhere from like 250 to 325.
And a fifth to a sixth of them are all kids. That's pretty good.
It's a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it might be a third.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
It's a lot of kids.
It's a lot of kids.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Lisa did an awesome job, and now I know Ren's going to do a great job. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see what she's going to do.
Yeah.
What have been, if just some stories that are like wins, you know, more like the 7 baptism thing, like some of the things that have been like, yes, that's why we did this. And then maybe a couple like it was hard here. Like this is the reality of planting a church. Like there's gonna be moments, and there's gonna be oh no moments. You know?
Yeah, I mean, the oh no moments. I don't think it's just church planting. I think anytime you're involved in people's lives, it's messy.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm surprised when people come to me, especially like MC leaders, and they're like, "Man, this is really hard," or you know, this person stabbed me in the back.
Yeah,
and I was trying to help them, and they really dishonored me. And that's the work. Like I've gone up to a few MC leaders recently and just said, you're a co-laborer. Like if you open up the book of Philippians, like thinking about you brings me joy because you're actually dying so that other people can live.
Yeah.
And you're eating a lot of it, and you're just loving them, and you're kind of taking it and you're trying to just help people grow. I mean, if you're church planting, you're going to get some non-believers, which is great. And, and you're going to get some folks that think they're mature that aren't mature.
Right.
And, it's just the patience. It's people, man.
Yeah.
Like ministry is about people. Church is about people. Whether you're a minister or not, you're around people.
Yeah. And
so, that it can be hard.
Right.
And if you think you're in it for you, then it's going to be hard. But if you know that Christ is shepherding through you, then I think it's a little bit different. And more importantly, that like however people treat you, like you've dishonored the Lord way more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you have to go there. If you don't, I mean, I think that's been the hardest thing is the way that sometimes the people, it's like you pour into folks and then the relationship just kind of goes sideways.
Right.
And sometimes it's your fault and sometimes it's not. And that's just we're in the people business.
Yeah. Well, that's relationship.
Yeah.
Like you can't do discipleship without getting close. Right. And the nature of being humans is that as you get closer.
Yeah. So the proverb,
you catch elbows.
There's a proverb that, Solomon writes, where, when the barn is full, when you have oxen, you can do a lot of work, but when you have a lot of oxen, you have a lot of manure.
Yeah. I like that.
It's the Bible, right? That's the Medel version, but that's basically what it says.
True. Yeah.
It's like, hey, if you want to get a lot of work done, it takes oxen, but you got a shovel.
Go into some wins.
Yeah, I think there's obviously one of the biggest wins is seeing people growing into like leadership capacities. So like I think of like Ken Ewing, who's always been a great guy. I don't know his story prior to, meaning like I don't know his day-to-day story. Obviously, I spent time with him, but I'm not sure what he did in Fremont, right?
Right.
But like I know in Hayward, he's a rock star. He's our road crew captain for our setup team, and he's already reproduced himself. He was gone this weekend. It was almost like we didn't need him, which is the best compliment you can give somebody who's discipling somebody.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Once you become an accessory,
right?
And then you're
and now I'm like, okay, man, just give me like 2 more reproduced like that, man, and then we'll put you somewhere else, which is fantastic. Right now we have 14 MCs in Hayward. Awesome. We got 175 people in small groups, which is a stupid amount of people.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is we have 14 MCs. 8 of them have apprentices, and like half of those could launch in the next year, which is great. So yeah, it's fantastic. The relationship we've had with the city and the school district has been really good. We're really thankful for that.
Right. You meet at the Hayward School Hub.
Yeah, right. It's called the Parent Hub. It used to be known as John Muir School. It's kind of fun because I run into people that actually went to school there as kids. Yeah, which is really it's kind of weird. They were walking like, man, this is a church now. It used to be a gym.
You catch them looking around. Like,
That's wild. Yeah, and the Parent Hub is great because it really is a center for a lot of work in the school district. So we have a lot of cool relationships there. Different agencies we can partner with. And people's neighbors are coming to church. People that have had broken relationships, they're coming back to the Lord. People whose marriages have been stymied.
Huh.
Somebody came up to me on Sunday and they're like, "Hey, we're going to the Resonate." I don't know if it's a Resonate, but it's like a marriage retreat or something. And then they're going to Weekend to Remember.
Yeah.
And then there's and by the way, it was the other spouse that is their opinion. It was their idea. They're the ones that booked it.
Right.
And I was like, wow, it's like a miracle.
Restoration.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so just, it's a big deal.
So cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Man, I got to get up there. Darn it. I
Yeah.
got to see this. I've been there midweek a bunch of times. It's empty. Right.
Yeah, midweek doesn't want. There's nothing going on midweek.
Changing sets or whatever.
Yeah. No. Don't do that. You
Darn
have to
it.
come on a Sunday. Yeah. 9:15, 11:15 at the Parent Hub.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So, you're 3 years in.
Yep.
What are some things on your mind as far as like what are some next steps for the Hayward campus? And obviously the Fremont campus is going through the way we're branding it is we're planting again.
Yeah, you guys are replanting.
We're replanting,
which is a great way to think about it.
Yeah, we're this building is a launching point.
Yeah.
For all kinds of things that we haven't yet been able to do and may not have been ready to do. And now it's like, okay, we're taking the leash off this thing. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to just with your folks in Hayward and where you're moving things?
Yeah, so I feel like everybody's next step on our campus is moving to becoming a reproducing disciple.
How did I know you were going to say that?
Well, that's where we are. We have a lot of
Yes.
very mature believers, awesome people that sacrifice a lot of time with their family, time, finances. And I know people on Hayward's campus that did not go on vacation this year because they wanted to give to Fremont's building, which is amazing. They did not go on vacation. So that's amazing. Yeah. They told the kids we're not going because we believe in the mission of this church.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I mean, that's a changed heart, and then our next step is for that family to come alongside another family and to just disciple them and help them understand that money isn't everything. Like stuff breaks. We're gonna throw it away someday.
Right.
Like where's your phone from 4 years ago?
It's in that drawer right on the bottom over there.
I don't even know where mine is.
Doesn't work.
Mine is on a boat somewhere, right?
Trashed.
Yeah, it's just messed up, And so, that's really our next step.
Yeah.
Is helping everybody kind of develop that gear of just helping somebody take a next step, whether that's, hey man, I'm an usher, why don't you come be an usher with me, or hey, come join me in this small group, or just seeing somebody on Hayward's campus that's sitting there eating a donut at a table by themselves and going and introducing yourself, that for sure is our next step. That's big.
That's huge.
And we've seen it. So, this last weekend we had a woman visit our campus. It was her second time there, but she's already part of it. My wife's MC, and another woman from my wife's MC saw her and was like, "Hey, how you doing?" Blah blah. Like they're talking, and then the one that's been there for a while said, "Well, after church we tear down. Would you like to help us?" And the woman that's only been there for 2 weeks was like, "Sure," which is phenomenal.
Huh.
And like that's all it takes. Just like, "Hey, would you like to?"
Yeah. Hang out.
Hang out, help.
Yeah.
Come study the Bible with us. Come eat at my house. It really is just that invitation.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to help us get to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what that's a similar step for the Fremont, because at this point we're anticipating an influx of people.
Yep.
And from whatever people from, colleges.
Yep.
People off the street, God willing, bring them, kids that we don't know, kids that haven't been born yet.
Right.
Yeah. Right? And just that discipleship engine, getting people in that reproducing mode growing themselves, excited about making that turn, making that invitation. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't want to become that, people always talk about churches, where 5% of the people do 90% of the work,
that's
whatever.
not resonate.
We don't want that.
No.
No.
We have, we've got about 100 members officially on our roll in Hayward.
Right.
There are only 2 that don't serve.
So that's 98%.
Yeah.
Is my math right on that?
That's a crazy amount.
That's
an obscene amount.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But again, that
98%,
then their next step is finding somebody that's attending our church and saying, hey, come to this new guest barbecue with me. Hey, come to this, Unwrapped's coming up. Hey, come to Unwrapped with me.
Right.
Come join my small group. Come, whatever. Come over and eat.
Yeah. Hang.
Yeah, just hang back we're going to go eat after teardown. Come tear down with us and then go eat with us.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Will, I got 2 more questions for you.
All right.
These are the best ones yet.
You think so?
So if you could think about yourself,
I do that a lot.
6 years ago.
Okay.
7 years ago.
Yeah.
And my earnest prayer is always that these podcasts get to the ears of the people who need to hear them.
Sure.
My prayer is that there's somebody who was sent a link to this that we don't even know.
Sure.
We don't even know this fella or this gal. There they are. And they're feeling the beginnings of this calling. And they're feeling that stirring.
Yeah.
Something like God is doing something. I think it might be like going into ministry.
Yeah.
Or maybe planting a church.
Yeah.
And it scares them. Maybe they're ignoring it.
Yeah.
Maybe they're trying to figure out what it is. Maybe there's other people telling them, just like they told you, and they're like, me? Talk to Will when he was 33. 30. Like what would you say back in time to that guy?
Yeah. So I'm in a little different situation at 33 because I'm already in full-time ministry.
Yeah.
So I would maybe say Will when he's like 23.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go there.
And that guy, I would say a couple things. One is and this would be good whether you have a call or not. I would say find a community that's going to love you.
Yeah.
And when I say love you, I mean like that would be able to look you in the eyes and tell you some hard things that you need to hear about your life, about your marriage, about your direction, about the way you spend time, the way you spend money. Like find that community, and it's not about people beating you up. It's about people that actually love you enough to like really help you grow. I would say find that community. Find whether it's 2 dudes or 2 ladies, if you're a male or female, just 2 people that you can be transparent with and be honest with and share everything. Like somebody's going to be like, man, this is the argument I had with my spouse, and this is why, and this is what I thought, and and finding somebody that's going to say, okay, so what's the lie you were believing, and how does the gospel challenge that lie, right?
Yeah.
So you got to find that community so that you can start working on those blind spots and knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at. And then the second thing is hone your craft. And so again, we've been joking, but like I jump into res kids. That's where I started with middle school kids.
Right.
That's where I started, and some people start and they never leave, which is great.
Yeah.
And some people start and that's just where they start teaching, and it's not about teaching just wherever you are. You got to figure out how God has created you. The scriptures are very clear.
Yeah.
Every single person who follows Christ has some type of spiritual gift, and that gift is for the body. It's for us. And so, man, when you don't show up, I like this illustration. Somebody said that, like, if you're like a hand, people are like, well, man, a body without a hand, it's like you're missing a hand.
Right.
But like a hand without a body is going to die. Right. So it's like,
it's that thing from,
it's from the Addams Family.
What is that thing?
Yeah.
It's thing. That's what it is.
So,
I like the eyeball one.
The eyeball one?
Yeah.
I don't know that one.
Well, what if everybody was an eyeball?
Oh yeah,
Or
I mean
like
that's scripture right there.
you're
right?
just a giant eye.
Yeah,
with...
that'd be gross, right? But like in all seriousness, like find out how God has created you. And when I say that, what I want you to hear is like, what makes you alive? So there was this guy. I'll throw him out, man. He's a good guy. His name is Ted Sig. Back at my old church in Chicago.
Yeah.
And dude was he was like a carpenter, and so he would do all of the sets for our church.
Yeah.
He would like we'd have vacation Bible school with like 6th graders.
Right.
And he would like bring in his power tools, and they would like make stools and all kind of like power saws, and like he'd do like
little wood shop.
Yeah, little wood shop.
Yeah.
And this dude is just like, I can't believe God would use me for this.
Uh-huh.
He's like, God gets, and that's what you're looking for.
Yep.
You're looking for like, I can't believe God would use me for this. And a lot of times, and this is what I love about any portable church situation is
right.
like, especially the dudes. 'Cause like in most churches, the only thing a guy can do sometimes is teach a Sunday school class. Well, how many Sunday school teachers are there? Not that many.
Nope.
But in portable church, we need as many guys and girls to set up curtains, sets, tech, whatever, and like everybody has a place in portable church.
Yeah.
We need more people everywhere. And so you actually get to do what you're good at and what you're, how God has created you. So I would say those two things, like find community, find out how God has created you, and then the final thing is like, obviously, man, learn the gospel. Learn that your identity comes from what God has done, not what you have to do. And if you are doing things because you're trying to get approval, you'll burn out.
Yeah.
My darkest days are the days where I think this thing depends on me.
Yep.
And my best days are the days where I say, I can't believe I get to do this. And there's times, man. There's times on Sunday mornings where I'm about ready to go up on stage.
Yeah.
And God just it's like a small nudge where he's just like, remember what you're doing. These are people I died for. And I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh.
Pride gone.
Vaporized, right? Because,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm have the privilege of leading these people into the presence of God.
Yeah.
That's the craziest thing ever.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing ever. And so, I mean, that third thing is, man, just be surrounded, be immersed in the gospel, be immersed in good news, and not what you have to do or oughts or I should or any of that garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the three things I'd say to me.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I wish somebody would have said it because I was afraid. I was afraid to be authentic.
Yeah.
I was always tired and,
yep.
Working on something other than my craft. And I was definitely preaching good advice to myself and not good news.
Well, that leads me to my last question.
Yeah.
My favorite question to ask anybody, and I think you've probably answered it maybe 4 or 5 times already.
That's good.
But this time it's just purely, what is it about this Jesus that has led someone like you to do what you do? And why is this so beautiful to you that you devote your life to learning that craft, to leading his people, to making more followers of him?
Yeah. So, when I was growing up, I idolized my older brother, Dennis. I mean, my brother Dennis, he was a stud. He was a star football player. My dad was like always proud of him. And my brother, let's just say he was popular. We'll leave it at that.
All right. Okay.
And I really wanted to be like him.
Yeah.
And so I was very unlike him. I was very nerdy. The word wasn't scholarly. It was nerdy. Very unpopular.
Okay.
Not athletic. Not cool. Didn't have a lot of friends.
Huh.
And so I looked at my life and I looked at my brother's life and I wanted to be like him. And so I started to change when my brother left for college. I started trying to be more like him. I started caring about the things that I wore. I started hanging out with the right people. I started doing the right things. And the apex was, I started playing football. I wasn't that guy.
Right.
The only reason why I actually got on the team was because there were only 18 guys that went out for the team, and you need 22. And
Sure.
so
We'll throw him in there.
yeah, so they didn't have a choice. They needed me. They needed a warm body. And so my senior year was this crazy mixture of these highs, these amazing things. By my senior year, I went from like nerd to like I was actually captain of the football team.
Huh.
I graduated salutatorian and National Honor Society president, and I had been awarded a full ride scholarship to the University of Michigan.
Wow.
And so I had all these things, and then the popularity that I was seeking as well. And I remember going to this party with this kid that was one of the most popular kids, and
Yeah.
we were studying that night. Wink, wink. And in the midst of, after everybody had left, I remember him saying, "Man, I'm like really popular and I'm so alone."
Hmm.
And I just remember like thinking, man, this is the most popular kid in school.
Wow.
And he's alone. He's like every kid in school would want to be this guy.
Yeah.
And he's empty. And I just remember thinking, there's something wrong with us. There's something wrong. Because I've got everything I ever wanted. Everything that my brother had, I had and more. Because I had the athletics and the academics.
Right.
And I was empty. I was resonating with what my friend was saying. And then about a month later, a friend gave me a Bible. And I read that thing cover to cover in 3 months. And it just changed my life. Like I just became alive. I became alive. And then later, this friend took me to a church camp where I finally heard the gospel for the first time. That the reason why I felt dead was because I was dead. It's because I didn't have a relationship with God, because I was bearing all this sin on my own. There was a penalty that needed to be paid. But the good news was that Jesus actually willingly took that penalty. Like he actually died.
Yeah.
And that was when I gave my life to Christ and instantly saw fulfillment. Instantly felt like life was worth living. Like this was good. And telling other people about this is a worthwhile thing. So that was between my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college. And everybody just like, including my parents, thought I went off the deep end. They thought I joined a cult or
You're not, I know.
Well, because I wasn't really a bad kid, but I wasn't like that kid.
Yeah.
I wasn't a church kid.
Right.
And so I started like leading a Bible study that summer in like the library for some of my friends, whoever would come.
Huh.
And just all these different things. And I think the bottom line is, at some levels, I know who I am. And I know I don't deserve it. And it doesn't matter how many churches I plant. I could never account for all the wrong I've done, for all the people I've hurt, for this destruction that I've brought into this world. There's no way. And Christ willingly took that for me. And not only took it, but has given me all the rights that he deserves.
Yep.
And has given me just this message that would actually change the world. So I don't believe that every day. That'd be a lie if I but when I'm able to stop and think about it, like what else could I do with my life? Like this is the first sermon that I preached that resonates. Like Jesus is looking at Peter and he's like, "Do you want to leave too, like these other people?" And Peter's like, "Lord, where else would we go? We know that you have the words of eternal life."
Right.
And there have actually been times where I've tried to like walk away and I just can't.
Yep.
There have been times where like my friends, they're all dogging me and they're all making fun of me. And I'm like, I can't do it anymore. I can't do this Jesus thing anymore. And like, I can't walk away. It's not possible. Yeah. So for me, it's just like, I know on some level who I am. I know I don't know to the depth, because if I did, I'd be horrified. But in some levels, like it doesn't make any sense that I get to do what I do. I know who I am.
Yeah.
And so if God can call and use me, I know he can call and use anybody. I know he can. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
And someday you'll see that. You'll see like, oh my gosh, that God used that. Like you'll see all my sin on it. Like, oh, whoa. But I just know, man, if God can change my life and use this one life, then I know anybody.
It's awesome. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be fully known for everything that I am. Even in the things I've forgotten.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't even ever remember, that he knows it all.
Yeah.
And says, it's finished.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Doesn't make any sense.
I'm so glad he did it, though. I'm so glad. Well, Will, man, I told you the first day I met you that I was so glad you were here.
Thanks, man.
And I'm still so glad you're here. You haven't.
That's good.
You haven't.
I'm
changed
glad I haven't
my
worn out my stay. That's good.
Yeah.
There might be some other people in the office that would disagree with you, but I appreciate you feel that way.
You tell them to talk to me.
I will.
That's right. Okay. Dude, thank you so much. This is such a blessing to talk to you, man. I love you.
Yeah.
You're my brother.
Yeah, I love you too, man.
Let's go.
Yeah, right on.
Give me a little high five over here.
All right.
Bam. Thank you. All right, there's that one down. Thank you so much, Will, for coming on the show. Man, as I'm sitting here after the interview's over, I'm just processing some of the stuff that he was saying, and what a great story, really. I mean, cliche, that's the name of the podcast, but it's an amazing story because really at the core of it, it's God's story, and it's such a privilege, it's such an honor to get to play a part in what he is doing, and I know that I can see that Will feels that way. Again, I can't wait to see what's next for him. It's amazing. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Again, if you want to follow the show on Facebook, just look for The Great Stories Podcast on Facebook. You can listen to it on Stitcher, the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, Google Play. It's even on YouTube, the audio versions. Just search up for The Great Stories Podcast. Don't forget the word the. If you put in anything else, you won't find it. And of course, I always say this, and I'm calling you all out because none of you have emailed me yet. Please, if you want to come on the show, shoot me an email at thegreatstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Guarantee you, there are people out there just like you. For every person that I have sit across this table from me, there's a million other ones just like you who need to hear what this guy that we call Lord has meant for you. And I want to record your story, so shoot me an email. Until then, keep listening, keep sharing the episodes. Let's get this word out. I'm so excited for what's next. We've been going at this for a year. I just realized, wow, my first episode was October 1st. That's crazy. Let's keep going. Come with me. All right, see you next time. Bye. All right, you're still listening, so this means either you knew this was going to happen, or you just happened to leave your podcaster playing, and you've discovered something. This is the portion of the show where I just kind of say whatever I want, and it's my show, so I can do that. Sometimes I read scripture, I say deep things, inspiring things, but today I'm going to say goofy things. I recently had a conversation with somebody who, and this happens from time to time, I feel like when you're in a group, eventually at some point, someone's going to talk about how the possums in their neighborhood are so huge, or they saw a raccoon in the street, running down the storm drain, something like that. You always hear these stories, and I always love that conversation because I have this story. So, I lived in Newark. I was living by myself at one point, and I had a cat. His name was Oliver. He's a rescue. And what I do is I had this little, opening in the window that I could leave open for the cat to come in and out. The cat would go out and do his business somewhere in the neighborhood, probably crapping in someone's begonias, and then he would come back and I usually leave that open, whatever, at night and all that. And so one evening, I'm leaving the thing open, and I go to bed, great, and right at, that bewitching hour at night when all the weird things happen. It's like 2 or 3 in the morning. The cat comes in, and he jumps onto the bed, and which was rare for him. He was not a very affectionate cat. I didn't like him very much. He didn't like me. But for some reason tonight, he's on the bed, and he's growling. I think is that what do cats do? Do they purr and they meow? But do they growl? Is there another word for cats? Anyway, somebody text me that if there's a word for that. Anyway, he's growling. He's like, "Rrr," and he's looking down at the foot of the bed, and I'm thinking, oh, cat, what is your problem? What do you want? And so I open my eyes and I look at him, and he's very high alert, looking down at my feet basically. And I'm thinking okay, gosh, he must have, maybe there's another cat that got in here, and whatever, he's upset about it. I don't know, So I kind of poke my head up and I look down, and I just see this little pair of eyes looking over. Just barely peeking up over the edge of my bed. And at the time, I was the type of guy, I just threw a mattress on the floor and just slept there. I didn't have a bed frame. So, a small animal like that, just peek up over the edge of the bed. And then, I'm like, oh gosh, what is that? Some cats in here, freaking neighborhood cats. And then I look a little bit to the left, and I see another set of eyes poke up over the edge of the bed. I'm like, oh gosh, now we're having a party. This is all very quick. I'm giving it to you, the slow-mo version. And then I look to the right and into the doorway of the apartment. And I like to sleep in almost a total sensory deprivation. So I don't like any light anywhere. But there's always, if you have a door open in your bedroom, there's always some light that kind of comes in, and I could just see the silhouette of a small animal down there, and it struck me that this was not a cat. This, what I was looking at, looked to me to be the silhouette of a raccoon. And, as I'm shaking off the, I just woke up, you're not thinking straight, and I kind of, bulge your eyes out, and I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, what is this? And I go, oh my gosh, this is a raccoon. And I look at the other two, and now, my eyes are kind of coming into focus, and the eyes that are poking up over the bed, their heads look very raccoon-like to me also. And then I realize inside my own mind, I'm like, Ryan, there's 3 raccoons in your bedroom. I'm like, ah! And, people respond differently to these types of situations. I discovered that night that I fly into an instant rage. And I reached over to my left, and I grabbed whatever was sitting there. I had a couple pairs of shoes next to the bed. I think I had a book. It might have been a Bible. I might have thrown a Bible at these raccoons. But I grabbed whatever I could, and I jumped up on the bed like an angry chimpanzee and just started chucking stuff at these raccoons, and they flipped out also. So I'm screaming at them and throwing things, and they're just scurrying out of the bedroom, freaking out. And now, they're running out of the bedroom. They take a left down the hallway into the kitchen, and they're heading back for the little cat door. And the whole way, I'm chasing them, just pelting them with whatever random stuff I can reach. And they finally go out the window and they leave. Now I'm standing there out of breath. My heart's beating fast. I'm just like, what just happened? This is ridiculous. So I finally, I calm down, I go to bed, whatever. Okay, and I'm thinking, wow, that'll teach them, Well, no, it didn't. Because the next night, I'm thinking, okay, there's no way they're going to come back. Sure enough, that 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock rolls around, and I wake up, just to the sound of something. I think my mind was on high alert now from the previous night, and I'll be darned, I hear some rustling around in the kitchen. And I'm like, there's no way they came back. So I get up, and of course, again, I grab shoes, and I came out with an armful, and I flipped the lights on in the kitchen, and there they are. Same three, well, not, I don't know if they're the same. I'm assuming they're the same three. And there they are, eating the cat food, just hanging out in the kitchen like it's their poker night, And so I flip the lights on. They start freaking out. They start running all over the front of the house as I'm chucking shoes at them again. And it just hit him. And there was one, I remember, as he was trying to get out of the window, he was a little too slow. And I'm literally sitting there whacking him with a sandal as he's climbing his way out the window. And then they run out, and they run down the stairs, and I opened up the door and chucked the shoe out into the street after him. And I'm, okay, so they're gone again. I'm like, dude, these are some pretty gutsy raccoons. I mean, this is amazing. That's some stick-to-itiveness, determination, if anything. So I'm thinking, okay, I don't think they're going to come back again. But just in case they do, I'm going to make this fun for me. So I laid a trap. And the next night, before I went to sleep, of course, I left the little kitty door window thing open. And before I went to sleep, I used to be really into paintballing. And so I had a pretty decent paintball gun. It was made by Piranha. And I had the compressed air tank all filled up to 3,000 PSI. I had a full hopper of good pro gamer grade paintballs. And I went to sleep just laying that next to the bed. Just ready to go, just in case. I didn't think they'd come back, really. I would have figured if they did, I might as well, have some fun with it. So, sure enough, as I'm laying there, I wake up, and I hear just the little click-clack of claws on the hardwood floor in the kitchen. And then I hear a second set, and then I hear a third set pop down into the kitchen, and I'm like, yes! They're in again. Now I'm happy about it. And so I reach over, I grab the paintball gun, and, I didn't leave it charged, so I twisted the air on. I cocked it, and then as quietly as I could, I just crept out of the bedroom. I took a left down the hallway, and there's like a little corner you have to go around to get to the kitchen. And so I'm there. And I reach over and I flip the light switch on. And there they are, the three of them. Down, two of them are at the cat bowl. And the other one, I guess this guy watches the door for the other two all the time because he's back over there by the window. And they freeze. They look at me. And then I just started unloading paintballs. Just like, bam, bam, bam. I'm shooting paintballs all over the kitchen. I'm hitting the walls. I'm hitting pictures, chairs. But, half of them are hitting these raccoons. And I'm not aiming for their faces or anything. I'm not some kind of inhumane jerk. Like I said, don't call PETA, all right? But I'm hitting them in the butt, and you can hear it hitting their fur. Just, and I know it hurts. They're freaking out. They're scampering. Is that the word? Scampering, scratching around, trying to get out of the window. And I'm just shooting them. Bap, 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 bap. They go out the door. I fling the door open. I shoot them as they're running down my stairs. I chase them down the stairs, and they're running across the street to try to get to their little storm drain thing. And I'm just sitting there, just bam, 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 just hit. And I've never had this good of aim with a paintball gun ever, but every shot is just hitting big raccoon butt as they're going across the street. And then finally they get to their little storm drain, and they go down in there. And I'm standing in the middle of the street. I got my sandals on. I'm wearing boxers and no shirt, and I have my paintball gun. And then I look over, and this is like something out of a movie. There's one of my neighbors, and he's standing there with a trash bag, in his hand, with his arm outstretched over the trash can that's open, just with like a frozen, dumbfounded look on his face about what he's watching me do. And I look over at him, and all I could think to say was, raccoons. And he's like, yeah. And I just walked away. I never talked to that guy again. I was too embarrassed. And so I went back to bed. And, what's funny is those darn things, they actually came back for a fourth night. This time, though, I left the cat door shut because I didn't want to do that. But they came back so early, I was still awake. And I hear them like messing with the little cat window, like trying to get in there. But the cool thing is there was a balcony attached to my apartment that I could go out on, and I could see my own like front door window thing. So I got the paintball gun again, and I just leaned over the edge of the balcony, and just I went D-Day on these little guys. I almost felt bad for them because they were trapped in my little entryway, and I did it again. I unloaded on these guys all the way across the street. It was beautiful. They didn't come back again. So those of you out there who might have a raccoon problem, paintball gun seems to be a very enjoyable yet messy way to eliminate the problem. Or you could get a giant Great Dane like Steve has. I'm sure he does not have raccoon problems. Anyway, thanks for listening to my crazy story. See you next time.